Chapter 936. Fengjiu glanced at him and asked casually, "Who are you?" Hearing this, the young man raised his chin and said arrogantly, "You don't even know me? Let me tell you. I am the 10th prince of the kingdom of Qing, Duan Yi." "Oh, it's Duan Yi," she replied nonchalantly and shifted her gaze away to continue eating the chicken. Seeing this, the young man was annoyed. "You haven't told me your name. It's not like I have to tell you." The young man was startled and looked at the young man in astonishment. He wanted to get angry, but when he smelled the fragrance, he swallowed his saliva and asked, "What are you eating?" As he spoke, he had already jumped off the flaming lion and walked towards Fengjiu. "Beggar's chicken. Have you eaten it?" Seeing him coming, Fengjiu tore off another drumstick and handed it over. "Here, try it." The young man looked curiously at the drumstick in his hand and coughed. He raised his chin and said, "Okay, since you're treating me, I'll try it." He took a bite and didn't care about his image. When the tender chicken entered his mouth, his eyes lit up. "Delicious. Of course, how can my cooking not be delicious?" Fengjiu took out a bottle of wine. "Want some? Drink." So, he sat down beside him and ate the chicken, drank the wine, and chatted. "There's a barrier here. How did you get in?" "I was here before you set up the barrier." "Then you're lucky to have met me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to get out." "Ha ha ha." Fengjiu chuckled and didn't say anything. "Where are you from? Aren't you from the imperial city of the kingdom of Qing?" "No, I'm from a 7th-tier country." "Ah, 7th-tier country? That's a country with very little influence and strength. However, it's also very far from here. How can someone from a 7th-grade country like you come here?" "I'm looking for someone." Hearing him say he was looking for someone, the young man asked, "Looking for someone? Have you found someone? Do you need little Wang to help you?" Fengjiu glanced at him and smiled meaningfully. "I found him, but I haven't thought of how to subdue him." "That's simple." He raised his fist and said, "Do you see that? My fist is all that matters. If you want to subdue me, all you have to do is clench your fist and do it." "Oh, using his fists? That won't do, right?" She rubbed her chin as she considered his suggestion. "Why not? They're all people who bully the weak and fear the strong. If they're not convinced, just beat them until they're convinced. How simple is that?" After finishing the drumstick, he tore off a chicken wing and continued to gnaw on it. Hearing this, Fengjiu stared at him with a faint smile. He restrained the light in his eyes and asked, "Right, I haven't asked you yet. What are you doing in this forest?" "I'm playing Final Destination," the young man said as he turned to Fengjiu. "Do you want to join me? I'm a ghost. There are 10 prisoners on death row in this forest. If I let them go, as long as they avoid me, they'll have a chance to live. If not, hee." Seeing the ruthlessness in the young man's eyes, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows. This baby-faced young man was as the information said. He was not a harmless and innocent young man. However, born in the imperial family, if he was too innocent, he would have died many times over. What's so exciting about playing Final Destination? If you want to play, then play for real. Do you dare? She asked provocatively. Chapter 937. Why not? I heard that there's a mass grave in the Qing kingdom. It's full of ghosts, but there's a formation set up there. Normal people can't go in, and usually, no one goes in. As she spoke, the young man lowered his head and pretended not to hear, stuffing chicken meat into his mouth. Seeing this, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and continued, "There are all kinds of ghosts in that place, but most of them are malicious ghosts. Their white robes flutters in the wind, their fangs are greenish-white, and their ghostly flames are floating around. If you go there at night, it's even more. Don't say it, don't say it. You're giving me goosebumps." The young man couldn't help but jump up and stare at Fengjiu. She looked at the young man in surprise and said, I thought you weren't afraid, so I told you. Besides, these aren't very powerful. What's more terrifying are the malicious ghosts that become ghost cultivators." You've seen them before?" The young man's baby face was filled with fear and curiosity. "I've seen them before. You want to know? I'll tell you." Seeing the fear on the young man's face and the curiosity in his eyes, She smiled and said, "It's daytime now. It's okay to talk about ghosts during the day, but don't talk about them at night." "That's true. All right then. Tell me. I'll listen." He sat down again and leaned closer to her. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Actually, there are good ghosts too. It's just that there are fewer of them. I once passed by a place and decided to stay for the night when I saw that it was dark. I felt something was wrong when I saw that there was only one family there. But I thought it was nothing, so I went to ask. I saw a child of a few years old in front of the door. That child is a ghost?" "No, the child isn't a ghost, but his grandparents, father, and mother are all ghosts, because they were killed and their resentment hasn't dissipated." So, the flaming lion standing at the side was already at the peak of the holy beast level. It had developed spiritual intelligence long ago. At this moment, it just watched its master sitting there in high spirits and listening to the young man in red who came out of nowhere tell a ghost story. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the flaming lion, who had not been paying much attention, suddenly turned and stared at a certain spot with a sharp gaze. In the forest not far away, the round Tunyun was trotting back with small steps. It glanced at the big flaming lion and came to its master's side. Is this your pet?" The young man looked at the round little beast and his eyes couldn't help but reveal a look of disdain. "Such a small little beast, it can't even help you fight. What's the point of raising it? This kind of animal is only suitable for women to keep for fun." Tunyun glanced at him, not even giving him an extra glance. "What a blind person." Fengjiu chuckled and stroked Tunyun's soft fur. "It's called Tunyun, my little beast. What do you think? She was round and cute, right? Doesn't it look like a cloud in the sky?" "SK, I don't see how cute she is. We men don't like this kind of little thing." As he spoke, he raised his chin and gestured, "Look at my pet beast. It's a peak holy beast. Its 4 hooves tread on fire, and it looks majestic even without roaring." "Peak holy beast. Its rank isn't low," she nodded and said with a smile. Chapter 938. With your peak foundation building strength, you still can't catch this peak holy beast flame lion. Presumably, there were at least 2 nascent soul cultivators accompanying you, right? Upon hearing this, Duanyi was stunned, and his gaze became vigilant. "You can see through my cultivation?" "I can see through it. Why can't I see through it? How's that possible?" He was somewhat in disbelief. She grinned and patted him with her hand. "How's that impossible? My strength is higher than yours to begin with." "Higher than me? Don't tell me you're still a core formation cultivator?" He sneered, sizing up Fengjiu. "Peak Great Spirit Master?" "Ha!" She laughed loudly. "That's because I suppressed it. Otherwise, it would have been too conspicuous. Don't tell me you're a core formation cultivator." As soon as his voice fell, he saw that Fengjiu really was laughing like a fox. He couldn't help but be stunned, crying out involuntarily, "You're really a core formation cultivator? How's that possible?" Low-key, low-key." She smiled and narrowed her eyes. "Just think of me as a peak Great Spirit Master. I just advanced to core formation a few days ago." Upon seeing Fengjiu's smug expression, the corner of Duanye's mouth twitched, and he asked, "Are you really from a 7th-ranked country?" The strength and cultivation of people from 7th-ranked countries are already so abnormal. In this 2nd-ranked country, his strength was already one of the best, but this boy was even more abnormal. He seemed to be 1 or 2 years older than him, but he'd actually formed his gold core. He elbowed the boy beside him. "We've been talking for so long, but you still haven't told me your name?" "Fengjiu," she said with a smile. "Fengjiu? You're ranked 9th? Upon hearing that, the corner of her mouth twitched. "Who said that you have to be ranked 9th if you're called Fengjiu?" "My name is Fengjiu." "It doesn't sound good," he said with a twitch of his mouth. She glanced at him speechlessly. Without saying anything else, she patted her dust-stained robes and stood up. "You're leaving?" Duanyi hurriedly asked. Fengjiu glanced at him and asked, "Do you know the Hell Mountain Range?" "Hell Mountain Range? I've heard of it, but I've never been there. It is said that our Hell Mountain Range is connected to the Hell Forest of the 8 Great Empires. There are treasures everywhere, but there are also dangers everywhere. Moreover, Some people from the 8 great empires go there to gain experience. As soon as he finished speaking, he stared at Fengjiu with a grave expression. Why are you bringing this up for no reason? Don't tell me you want to go there because you have nothing to do. You're right. I want to go there for a walk and gain some experience, so I want to find a few people to team up with. Do you dare to come with me? She raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Hearing this, he stared at Fengjiu and exclaimed, Do you want to die? Even if a gold core cultivator went in, I've never heard of anyone coming out alive. Very few people on our side dare to go in. Just because others don't dare, it doesn't mean that I don't dare. Let me ask you, do you dare to come with me? She stared at him. She did not intend to tell him that she was an instructor of a 2-star academy. She only intended to kidnap him and go to that place to gain some experience. She believed that after coming out of that place, even if her strength did not increase, her skills and adaptability would increase. When the time was up, she could directly take him back. Duanyi thought for a moment. His cute baby face wrinkled up. After a long time, he asked, Just the 2 of us? Chapter 939. Sigh, but my father will definitely not allow me to go. He sighed. That's simple. Just leave it to me. Her eyes flashed with wisdom as she said, However, in order to get rid of the people following us, we still have to sneak away. How about this? You and your flame lion follow me first and wait for me at the edge of the barrier. I'll inform your guards. He was stunned. You? Can you do it? Don't get caught. Hearing this, she looked at the little beast on the ground. Swallow Cloud, lead the way for them. I'll catch up with you later. Ayo. Swallow Cloud opened its mouth and growled. Then it raised its head and walked with its short legs to lead the way. All right. If you can't do it, you can find me, but there's a barrier here. Can you not be so long-winded? Let's go. She rolled her eyes speechlessly and waved her hand to chase them away. When Duanyi saw this, he did not speak anymore and followed the little beast on his flame lion. He looked back at Fengjiu, who was standing in the same place, and thought, It doesn't matter. If he really can't do it, then I'll just circle back. As for Fengjiu, after Duanyi left with Swallow Cloud, she went directly to the guards. Before she got close, she heard a shout. Who are you? Why are you here? Hearing the shout, Fengjiu looked at the person and saw that it was a middle-aged man with a nascent soul cultivation. So she said, I'm a teacher from the 2-star academy, surnamed Feng. The dean asked me to come and pick up Duanyi. A teacher from the 2-star academy? The middle-aged man glanced at Fengjiu. She did not hide her cultivation and directly released the strength of a middle gold core stage. What proof do you have? Seeing the strength of the middle gold core stage, the nascent soul cultivator asked in a deep voice, This is my teacher identity jade token. She handed over the jade token and said, The nascent soul cultivator took it and scanned it with his divine sense. The youth's appearance and identity were printed on it, so he nodded and relaxed his expression. The 10th prince is unwilling to go to the academy. Do you have a way to take him away? He's already agreed to go with me. I'm here to tell you guys to remove the barrier. I'm taking him away. He agreed to go with you? The nascent soul cultivator was somewhat surprised. That's right. Fengjiu nodded. Seeing this, he pondered for a moment and asked, Since you are an instructor of the 2-star academy and have also come to pick up the 10th prince, then do you want to accompany the 10th prince to the imperial palace to see the emperor? It's too troublesome. I still have things to do, so I won't be going to the palace. As she spoke, she saw him frown slightly and added, You can rest assured that my identity cannot be faked. If you don't believe me, you can send a letter to the academy to ask. I understand. The nascent soul cultivator looked at the sky and said, 2 hours. Once I capture the 10 prisoners, I will release the barrier. Hearing this, Fengjiu curled his lips and said, All right, then I'll take a walk around here with Duanyi. As he spoke, he turned around and left. Watching him leave, the nascent soul cultivator immediately said to the guard behind him, Immediately return to the palace and report. Yes. The guard responded and quickly left. You two, follow him. Try not to let him find you. He instructed the 2 middle gold core stage cultivators. Okay. The 2 of them responded and followed behind Fengjiu. Chapter 940. After about an hour, there was still no sign of Fengjiu. Duanyi couldn't help but look back as he muttered, "That kid couldn't have been caught, right? Forget it. I'd better go back and take a look." Just as he patted his mount and was about to turn back, he saw a red figure dash out of the forest and arrive in front of him in a few breaths. "Duanyi, can you put this big beast into the spiritual beast space?" As long as it was a contracted beast, it could be put into the spiritual beast space. He should be able to do the same, right? Of course. But why should I put it away? Isn't it fine for me to ride it? He looked at Fengjiu with a puzzled expression and asked, "Wait until we're out of the kingdom of Qing before riding it. Otherwise, it'll be too eye-catching. Hurry up and put it away. Let's go." She gestured, then turned around and walked to the edge of the barrier. She gathered spirit energy in her hands and gathered it on her fingertips. As she pointed, she let out a clear shout, "Break!" As soon as she shouted, the spiritual power on her fingertips pointed forward. Like a huge rock thrown into a calm lake, circles of spiritual power rippled out in that seemingly transparent place. Duanyi was putting his contracted beast into the spiritual beast space when he saw the barrier open a small door in front of him. He was startled. How could it be like this? "Let's go." Fengjiu pulled him and jumped out. Little Tunyun followed closely behind them. After they jumped out, that place gradually returned to its original state. Hiss. How come I didn't know the barrier could be broken like this? If we come out like this, how could they not know? He was pleasantly surprised. He looked back and was pulled onto a feather by Fengjiu. Together with little Tunyun, they quickly flew into the distance. One day later, in a town in the kingdom of Qing. In an inn, Fengjiu was resting on the bed. She faintly heard the sound of an argument downstairs, so she pulled the blanket over her head. However, not long after, the innkeeper hurried upstairs and knocked on her door. "Young master, young master, young master," quickly opened the door. "Something has happened. Something has happened." Hearing the anxiety in the shopkeeper's voice, Fengjiu helplessly got up. After a simple wash, he put on his coat and opened the door. His tone was somewhat displeased. "What happened so early in the morning?" Seeing the door open, the shopkeeper hurriedly said, "Young master, the young master who came with you is fighting with someone outside." "Fight?" Fengjiu was startled for a moment, then said indifferently, "If you want to fight, then let's fight. What's the big deal?" With Duanye's strength, he might not necessarily lose. Therefore, when she was about to close the door, the shopkeeper stopped her. "No, he beat up the city's little tyrant. That little tyrant has some background. I'm afraid that young master." She frowned. "What's his background?" "It's fine as long as he's not dead. What's the big deal?" Hearing this, the shopkeeper was stunned and speechless. As long as he didn't die? Was this referring to that young master? Or that little tyrant? Forget it. Have someone bring me some breakfast. It would be best if I could get a bowl of porridge. She walked out with little Tun Yun at her feet. "Young master, aren't you going to see your friend?" The shopkeeper asked in surprise. "Didn't you hear what I said?" She paused and glanced back at the shopkeeper. Chapter 941. Fengjiu walked down the stairs and glanced outside. When he saw that there were many people gathered outside the inn, he ignored them. Instead, he found a nearby table and sat down. He poured himself a cup of water and drank it. Because there were too many people gathered outside, she could not see the situation. She could only faintly hear the sounds of fists landing, the clapping and cheering of the crowd, and Duanye's curses. She heard that the curses were full of energy, so she was not worried that he would be at a disadvantage. After the waiter served the snacks, she picked up her chopsticks and began eating. Little Tun Yun obediently lay on a chair at the side and did not run around. "Sir, this is your porridge. There are also 2 side dishes to go with it." The innkeeper personally served Fengjiu the food while carefully observing his expression. However, he saw that he was not anxious at all. It was as if he did not know the youth who was fighting outside. When he saw this, he could only retreat and no longer speak. My eyes." A blood-curdling scream came from outside. The onlookers only saw the purple-clothed youth throw a punch at the little tyrant's eyes, causing him to scream endlessly. When he let go, one of his eyes quickly turned black and blue, and even that side of his face swelled up. "Oomph! You dare to provoke me? You're blind. Since you're blind, I'll teach you a good lesson. I'll let you know who you can't afford to provoke." Duanyi coldly snorted, and once again rushed forward, lifting his leg to kick that man. Unexpectedly, his kicking leg was grabbed by someone and turned. His entire body turned along with it, and he only felt a wave of force attacking him and was forcefully pushed out. The purple-robed figure somersaulted in the air and landed on the ground. However, he could not stabilize himself and took a few steps back before he could stabilize himself. His expression was cold as he stared at the person who had come and said sternly, "Who are you? You want to stand up for him? Sir, you should know when to stop. If you cross the line again, I won't be polite." The person who came was a middle-aged man with the strength of a gold core. He only glanced at Duanyi before warning him. It was very obvious that he had seen through Duanyi's strength at the peak of the Foundation Establishment stage. However, even with the strength at the peak of the Foundation Establishment stage, he would not be able to withstand a single blow from a golden core cultivator. Thus, he had issued a warning. After all, using the cultivation of a golden core cultivator to deal with a Foundation Establishment cultivator was too humiliating for his status. "You're welcome? Ha ha ha. If you don't scram, then don't blame me for being impolite." Duanyi raised his head and roared with laughter, but his sharp eyes were like those of a little beast, bloodthirsty, icy cold, and surging with battle intent. Obviously, he was utterly unafraid that his opponent was a golden core realm cultivator. Is this guy crazy? That middle-aged man is Little Tyrant's uncle, an Azoth practitioner. He even dares to provoke him? Maybe this young man came from some aristocratic family? Otherwise, where would the courage and guts come from? But I don't see anyone protecting him. Moreover, even if he really is from a noble family, so what? If he were to be killed here, then he would be nothing. That's right. Last month, Little Tyrant killed someone, but no one dared to say anything to them. Even the city lord turned a blind eye to it. This purple-robed young man looks like he came from outside and doesn't know Little Tyrant's reputation. However, his strength is above Little Tyrant's. He was actually able to beat Little Tyrant to the point of crying for his father and mother. This is truly satisfying. Chapter 942. You're just a local tyrant. How dare you call yourself an overlord? Chi, don't you know that only I have the right to call you little overlord? Duanyi's hand moved, and an 8-star flywheel appeared in his hand. The flywheel seemed to be made of black iron, but the array patterns on it, as well as the sharp teeth of the wheel, made the golden core cultivator squint his eyes, and a trace of greed flashed across his eyes. Magic tool. That was an extraordinary magic tool. An extremely rare magic tool on the market. He couldn't tell that this kid actually had such a thing. However, to be able to take out such a magic tool so casually, he might have even more valuable treasures on him. Thinking of this, his mind quickly moved. Kid, I think you don't want to live anymore. How dare you cause trouble in my territory? The man who was beaten until his entire body was in pain was supported by 2 men. He was glaring angrily at Duanyi, who was holding the 8-star flywheel. He wanted to go forward and teach him a lesson, but he was stopped by the middle-aged man in front of him. Uncle, this kid is too arrogant. If we don't teach him a lesson, he won't know the immensity of heaven and earth. That's right. If we don't teach you a lesson, you won't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Duanyi nodded in agreement. The 8-star flywheel in his hand spun, and with a whoosh, the flywheel attacked the middle-aged man with a fierce aura and traces of killing intent. A trace of calculation flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes, and his figure flashed. Since you're not willing to stop, then I'll offend you. The pressure of a golden core cultivator attacked. After dodging Duanyi's attack, he grabbed Duanyi's shoulder with his bare hands. You dare to touch me? I'll cripple your pig's feet. Duanyi snorted coldly. The 8-star flywheel returned to his hand, and with a change of direction, it slashed towards the hand that was grabbing his shoulder. Whoosh! The middle-aged man was shocked by his extremely fast speed. He instinctively retracted his hand, but he could still feel the bloodthirsty aura on the back of his hand. It felt as if he had retracted his hand a little slower, his hand would have been chopped off. Damn it! This kid was only at the foundation establishment stage, but how could he be so fast? How could he know that as a disciple of the imperial family, he'd encountered countless dangers since he was young, and his movement technique and speed were the foundation for survival, so he naturally wouldn't be slow. Moreover, they were related to the aristocratic families of the 8 great empires, so they naturally had some secret techniques that outsiders didn't know about. Hiss. That young man is so fast. That's right, to actually be able to exchange blows with a golden core cultivator. Where did this young man come from? He's definitely not from a small family. It won't be so easy to deal with the son of an aristocratic family. If they really dare to harm the young man's life here, the young man's family will probably know. I've heard that many aristocratic families send their children out to gain experience, and they will secretly protect them. As long as their lives are not in danger, they will generally not show themselves. Hearing the words of the surrounding people and seeing the speed of the youth's attack and his strange movement technique, the golden core cultivator's forehead broke out in cold sweat. In a moment of carelessness, his arm was scratched by the flywheel. Seeing that if they continued to fight in this place, even if they won, it wouldn't be good. Thus, he gritted his teeth and quickly retreated. He pulled the little tyrant with one hand and rushed back, leaving behind a sentence at the same time. Brat, don't let me see you again. Chapter 943. He looked around and snorted. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What's there to look at? Hurry up and disperse. When the surrounding people saw this, they quickly dispersed. They didn't dare to offend someone who dared to go against a golden core cultivator. Seeing that the crowd had dispersed, Duanyi walked towards the inn. The shopkeeper at the door hurriedly greeted him with a smile. It's good that young master is fine. It's good that you're fine. That young master has been waiting for you on the first floor for a long time. He's here. Young master, please follow me. Duanyi walked in and saw Fangju sitting there full. He walked forward and said, You're quite at ease. Aren't you afraid that I won't be able to win and will be killed? If you can't win, you'll have run away long ago. Fangzhou poured a cup of tea and drank it as he gestured. I ordered those for you. After eating, we'll be on our way. All right. He didn't say much. After sitting down, he picked up his chopsticks and started eating. The two of them paid the bill and left the inn, heading out of the city. After exiting the city gate, Duanyi asked, Didn't you say there were 3 more people? Who are they? Where are we going to find them? Hearing this, she glanced at him and said with a smile, What's the rush? You'll know when we get there. You already have people in mind? With our strength, it's a bit difficult to enter the Hell Mountain range. So, the other 3 are nascent soul cultivators? If they were nascent soul cultivators, wouldn't it be fine if I asked my imperial father to call 2 of them? Why do we need to find them? What nascent soul cultivators? Fangzhou couldn't help but chuckle. Those 3 are the same as you, Foundation Establishment cultivators. What? Are you kidding? Find 3 more Foundation Establishment cultivators to enter the Hell Mountain range? With my cultivation level, I'm confident that I can fight against a Golden Core cultivator, but against a Peak Golden Core cultivator, I'm not confident at all. If it were other Foundation Establishment cultivators, they wouldn't even be able to deal with an early-stage Golden Core cultivator. If you find 3 more Foundation Establishment cultivators, we won't have to protect them, right? No, those 3 are the same as you. They aren't weak. Hearing him praise him as well, he couldn't help but glance at him. A trace of surprise flashed across his baby face as he coughed lightly and said, I don't know about others, but I'm definitely not weak. Seeing that you're not bad, I'll give you a hand when you encounter danger in the Hell Mountain range. Sure, she chuckled and said, but before we leave, don't you think we should solve the problem first? What trouble? He looked at him in confusion. That's the trouble that's been following us all the way. Aren't they waiting for us to leave the city? I think it's better for you to solve the trouble you've caused. It's a good opportunity for you to practice your skills. Hearing this, he instantly reacted. His cute baby face darkened, and his sharp eyes looked behind him. He shouted, Who are you, scoundrel? Hurry up and come out to see me. Ha 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 ha. You really don't know the difference between life and death. A burst of laughter rang out. Just as the voice faded away, a dozen strong men holding swords and sabers surged out from the surroundings. Aside from the Golden Core cultivator and the Great Spirit Master man from before, there was also a middle-aged man with a large belly. Chapter 944. His eyes, which were so fat that only a slit could be seen, flickered with light as he sized up the two of them as if he was evaluating goods. Finally, his gaze swept past the baby-faced Duan Yi and stopped at the handsome Feng Jiu's face. A trace of shock flashed through his eyes. Old thing, don't use such a disgusting gaze to look at people. It will make me want to dig your eyes out. While the fat middle-aged man was sizing up the two of them, Duan Yi was also sizing them up. Especially this fat guy, who was wearing sparkling gold clothes. Seeing him use such a gaze to stare at them, he knew that this person was thinking of dirty things. He. Where did this noble young master come from? His looks are truly outstanding, and each has their own charm. The fat man chuckled as he continued to stare at the two of them with narrowed eyes. However, rather than saying that he was staring at Duan Yi, it would be better to say that he was staring at the handsome young man in red clothes that were as dazzling as fire. That youth only had the cultivation of a great spirit master, but from the moment he saw them appear until now, he wasn't alarmed or panicked. He calmly stood there with an indifferent expression on his incomparably handsome face and a faintly discernible smile on his lips. This young man's beauty was even more beautiful than a woman's, but it was not the kind of evil and gentle beauty. Instead, it was a kind of wanton and dazzling beauty like the blazing sun. That pair of serene eyes contained a mysterious color. With just a glance, it made people unable to look away. However, it was precisely because of this young man's peerless beauty, because of his calmness, and because of the faintly discernible smile on his lips that gave him a very strange feeling no matter how he looked at it. Danger. It was a strange feeling of danger. He was only a great spirit master young man, so how could he give him such a feeling? It should be a misconception. Feng Jiu, what is this old thing's cultivation? Duan Yi moved closer to his side and asked. Peak Golden Core. She narrowed her eyes and said with a smile. Hearing this, the corner of his mouth twitched. Previously, he said that he could not beat a Peak Golden Core cultivator, but now he was met with a Peak Golden Core cultivator. How could he be so unlucky? Feng Jiu seemed to know what he was thinking. He patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, It's okay. If you can't beat him, you have me. You're saying that you've just entered the Golden Core realm not long ago, and yet you're able to deal with someone at the peak of the Golden Core realm with the cultivation of the early Golden Core realm? He lowered his voice, looked at him, and sighed. All right, if we can't find them, we'll run. What are you mumbling about? What? Scared? Ha ha ha. Capture them. Bring them back and clean them up properly. The Golden Core stage cultivator who had been injured by Duan Ye's 8-star flywheel shouted. As soon as his voice fell, the surrounding dozen or so strong men rushed forward to surround them. You are courting death. Duan Yi coldly snorted. With a move of his hand, the 8-star flywheel turned into a beam of light and appeared in his hand. He instantly threw the flywheel. With a whoosh, the flywheel carried a sharp aura as it slashed towards the necks of the cultivators who had surrounded him. For a moment, at the same time the cold light streaked across, miserable screams were heard. Streams of blood splashed onto the ground. The strong men who had surrounded Duan Yi and Duan Yi had fallen dead before they could even touch the two of them. That's right. If an initial stage Great Spirit Master cultivator were to deal with a Peak Foundation Establishment cultivator, they would definitely be killed as soon as they made a move. Chapter 945. To have such skills and cultivation at such a young age, little doll, which clan are you from? The fat middle-aged man asked, squinting his eyes as he stared at Duan Yi. Hearing the word little doll, Feng Jiu could not help but laugh. Looking at Duan Ye's red face, that childish baby face was indeed worthy of the word little doll. Duan Yi glared at Feng Jiu angrily, then glared at the fat middle-aged man. I'm your grandfather. With that, He attacked with the 8 stars flywheel in his hand. Fangzhou stood to the side without moving. Duan Ye's skills were not weak, and she wanted to know where his limits were. Moreover, the peak Golden Elixir Realm Cultivator would not attack so easily, so she was not worried that his life would be in danger. As expected, when the early Golden Elixir Realm Cultivator saw Duan Yi attack, he immediately attacked him, blocking his attack and exchanging blows with him. In terms of strength, Duan Yi was not his opponent's match, but in terms of speed and movement techniques, he had the upper hand. Fangzhou watched quietly, and Tun Yun also followed beside her, watching the two exchange blows. Sharp air currents whistled through the air. Invisible spiritual auras swept through the air, attacking the opponent. Hiss! The Golden Elixir Realm Cultivator did not have a weapon in his hand, and was cut by the 8 stars flywheel in Duan Ye's hand. Blood instantly seeped out of his shoulder, and he also gasped, retreating slightly. The young man watching from the side did not dare to move forward, because he knew that he was not his opponent. If he suddenly moved forward, he would only end up like the dozen strong men who were killed, dying. However, he could not defeat the doll face. But this red-clothed youth was only a great spiritual master, so he could take care of him. Thus, when he saw that the youth had been staring at the battle between the two, he moved his sleeve slightly and a dagger slipped out from his sleeve. He held it in a reverse grip and his figure suddenly leaped out, raising the dagger to stab at the red-clothed youth. "Brat, watch me kill you." However, Fengju didn't even look at him. She didn't dodge or attack. That was because Tun Yun, who was standing by her feet, had already charged forward when he saw the man lunging at her with a dagger in his hand. The small figure was like a ball. The seemingly harmless pet that had no combat power flashed its sharp claws at this moment. At the same time, its sharp claws slashed at the man's wrist that was holding the dagger. Swish! What was shocking was that when such a small pet pounced and flashed its claws, it actually carried a fierce and bloodthirsty aura. Its speed was so fast that even the great spirit master-level man couldn't dodge in time. Hiss! My hand! The dagger fell to the ground with a clang, and fresh blood seeped out from his trembling wrist. His face turned pale, and he instinctively reached out to grab his bleeding hand. Looking at the deep claw marks on his bloody wrist, he could faintly see half of his white bones. He was so shocked that his heart beat wildly, and he screamed involuntarily, "Ah! My hand! My hand!" Because of the sudden change on the man's side, the Golden Elixir Realm Cultivator who was fighting with Duan Yi momentarily lost his mind, and his abdomen was also slashed by the sharp 8 stars flywheel. He staggered backwards, and his face turned pale. He tightly clenched his teeth, unwilling to accept this. Chapter 946. The fat middle-aged man's hand that was patting his stomach paused for a moment. His eyes that were as thin as slits stared at the little round pet, and a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. "What kind of beast is this?" he asked, as if he didn't see the two people injured. He only stared at the little beast with interest, as if he was very surprised by its fierce attack to protect its master. Fangzhou didn't even look at him. Her gaze was only focused on Duan Yi. When she saw that he was fighting with the Golden Core Cultivator, and that there were only small wounds on his body caused by the air currents, a trace of satisfaction appeared in her eyes. Not bad. His skills were indeed not bad. It was more than enough to deal with an early Golden Core Cultivator. Even if it was a mid-Golden Core Cultivator, he could still steadily gain the upper hand and not be defeated. With this kind of skill and reaction, he could definitely kill someone above his level. Perhaps seeing that Fengju didn't pay attention to him, the fat middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and turned to look at Duan Yi. In the next moment, the fat figure actually rushed out at an extremely fast speed, attacking Duan Yi. Seeing this, Fengju's eyes moved slightly. She didn't make a move and only watched. She saw that Duan Yi was gradually at a disadvantage in the fight with that person. Although the other party was fat, his movements weren't clumsy. Compared to the Golden Core Cultivator, this peak Golden Core Cultivator's strength was clearly much higher. In less than 10 moves, Duan Yi was completely at a disadvantage. When she saw the other party's palm carrying a strong chi attack towards Duan Yi's chest, her eyes flashed with a cold light, and her red figure instantly rushed out. Duanyi only felt a sudden force grab him from behind. His entire body was pulled back, and he was forcefully sent several meters away to avoid that almost fatal attack. His heart jumped slightly, and he gasped. His eyes widened as he saw Fengjiu's red figure flash before his eyes and meet the fat middle-aged cultivator's attack. "Be careful." He couldn't help but cry out in alarm. After all, he thought that Fengjiu was just a cultivator who had just entered the Golden Core realm. Perhaps his battle prowess was even lower than his own, but he had faced such a blow head-on. If he had been hit by that person's palm, even if he didn't die, he would have been seriously injured. The two palms struck out, and the two streams of air collided. The powerful aura and pressure seemed to want to compete and see who was stronger. They suppressed each other until a loud bang was heard. The air currents rumbled, and the more powerful side swept out with an overwhelming momentum. It was like a stormy wave in the sea suddenly colliding, and the fat middle-aged cultivator was sent flying several meters away. Pooh! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his figure swayed slightly. His entire body was knocked back by the powerful airflow, and he lost his balance and staggered back. But at this moment, before he could even react, he saw the red figure rush towards him like a ghost. He could even see the shock and horror in the deep and cold eyes of the red figure. Shio! A sharp gust of wind swept past, followed by a flash of cold light. Blood splattered out, and the fat figure stiffly fell backwards. Bang! He didn't even have the chance to scream and beg for mercy. Fengjiu took his life in 3 moves. Such a frighteningly powerful battle prowess made Duanyi, who was standing behind him on tenterhooks, widen his eyes in shock and disbelief. Chapter 947. A sharp scream broke the silence. The man with the injured wrist screamed and tried to escape. Almost at the same time, the Golden Core cultivator with the injured abdomen and shoulder turned to flee. However, Fengjiu smiled when he saw the two figures. Trying to escape? It's too late. As soon as he finished speaking, the red figure attacked and took care of the two people without any difficulty. Duanyi gulped when he saw the two motionless corpses on the ground. He stared at Fengjiu in admiration. So powerful. Yes, so powerful. So much more powerful than him. He always thought that there were few people in his generation who could be his match. After all, he could kill people above his level. Ordinary people could not do that. However, after seeing Fengjiu's strength and skills today, he could not help but sigh in admiration. He was really powerful. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and take everything valuable from them and run. Fengjiu, who had already squatted down to search the corpses, turned around and shouted at Duanyi. Oh, okay. Duanyi responded in a daze. Almost instinctively, he squatted down and took everything valuable from the corpses. In the end, he brought everything to Fengjiu. Here, it's all here. Here. He handed everything to Duanyi. Although these things were worth some money, he did not care for them. Moreover, he was born in the imperial family and had never lacked money. Fengjiu glanced at him but did not say anything. He took the items and put them into his space. Go. Someone will definitely come later. Let's go. With that, he threw the flying feather and jumped up with Tun Yun. When Duanyi saw this, he hurriedly jumped up and sat on the flying feather. The flying feather carried them into the sky. After a while, he asked, Fengjiu, how are you so powerful? That was a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core stage. You could kill him in 3 moves? Is your cultivation really only at the Golden Core stage? Yes. If he wasn't in the Gene Dance stage, could he be in the Nascent Soul stage? As for skills, it's all about practice. Your skills aren't bad either. If you practice well, you'll be a sharp blade in the future. He looked at the red-clothed youth beside him, then his gaze fell on the little beast called Tun Yun. It seems to be quite powerful as well. He then added, however, it's still not as powerful as my flaming lion. Little Tun Yun glanced at him and howled. It laid down beside Fengjiu and rested. It clearly didn't want to pay attention to him. Upon hearing his words, Fengjiu chuckled and didn't say anything. The gentle breeze lifted her hair. She closed her eyes comfortably and looked at the mountains and rivers, the blue sky and white clouds. 2 days later, Fangzhou and Duanyi arrived at another second-tier country and found a famous, bustling town in this country. Ning City? Chapter 948. Yes, it's that money grubber. The smile on her lips deepened. Ning Lang, the only son of Ning City's city lord, was extremely stingy. Other than being a miser, his methods of earning money were also extraordinary. It was said that when he was 1 year old, he carried a gold abacus and 2 gold ingots. When he was 5, he already knew how to earn money. When he was 8, he was already helping his father behind the scenes. It could be said that Ning City's prosperity could not be separated from this money grubber Ning Lang. You want to ask that money grubber to go to the Hell Mountain Range? You don't have to think about it. He only cares about how to earn money all day long. He won't be interested in going to the Hell Mountain Range. Duanyi waved his hand and said, he did not expect Fangzhou to come here to find that money grubber. How can that be? There are many valuable things in the Hell Mountain Range. As long as he's greedy, he won't reject our invitation. Her eyes moved slightly, flashing with a hint of a smile. Seeing that he did not believe, Duanyi did not say anything. You'll know when you see him. He's a person. How do I put it? He won't let go of any opportunity to earn money, but at the same time, he cherishes his life very much. As he said, he has to enjoy the money he earns, so he doesn't want to do dangerous things, lest he accidentally loses his life. It's too miserable to die but have money to spend. Hearing this, Fangzhou chuckled. He's an interesting person. Let's go. She walked forward, Tun Yun following beside her feet. Seeing this, Duanye's baby face showed some helplessness as he followed her inside. Since you want to find him, let's go directly to the city lord's mansion to pay him a visit. He might be at home. As Duanyi spoke, he found someone to ask for directions, then went to the city lord's mansion with Fangzhou. Who is it? The guards of the city lord's mansion stopped the two of them and asked, I want to see your young city lord. Go in and inform him that Duanyi is looking for him. Duanyi, who had a baby face, stood with his hands behind his back. He was dressed in a purple robe and had a natural noble aura. Seeing this, the guards looked at each other and said, Wait a moment. Then, one of them quickly went in to pass the message. In the study of the city lord's mansion, a young man was counting on an abacus. At this moment, the voice of an attendant came from outside the door. Young master, there are 2 people outside. One of them is called Duanyi and is looking for young master. Duanyi? The young man who had his head buried in calculating paused and raised his head in surprise. Why is he here? Young master, do you want to see them or let them go? The servant outside asked. Invite them to the front hall. I'll be there in a moment. Yes. The attendant replied and went out to report. Outside, Fangzhou and Duanyi were invited into the city lord's mansion and brought to the front hall. The one leading the way was an old man. According to his self-introduction, he was the Ning family's housekeeper. He, please have a cup of tea and some snacks. My young master will be here soon. The old man said with a smile. After asking someone to serve tea and snacks, he left and waited outside the hall. Fangzhou sized up the Ning mansion and couldn't help but click his tongue. From the inside to the outside, it's dazzling. No matter how you look at it, you can see the word rich. What a rich person. Then, he said to Fangzhou, Have you seen this little fatty before? Fangzhou shook his head. Looking at the white and chubby little boy in front of him, he couldn't help but smile. It's the first time I've seen him. He was vulgar, but he didn't have that kind of vulgar feeling. Perhaps it was because this little fatty was white and chubby and had a cute little chubby appearance. Even if his robe was luxurious with golden threads, his hair was tied up with a golden crown and a golden belt wrapped around his body, he still didn't give people a vulgar feeling. On the contrary, he had a kind of oppressive wealth on him. Chapter 950. Duanyi opened his mouth, but was interrupted by Fangzhou. Do you know the Hell Mountain Range? She looked at him and smiled. We want to invite you to go with us. Are you interested? Hell Mountain Range? Ning Lang looked at them and shook his head. He said directly, not interested. That place has a lot of natural treasures, spirit stones and crystal cores. She looked at him and smiled. I only know that place is very dangerous. If I go in, I probably won't be able to come out. He waved his meaty hands and said, also, I'm very busy. I've been busy settling accounts recently. I don't have time to go out. It's said that a stock of aged spiritual medicine can be sold for a sky-high price. You really don't want to go? Other than those beast crystals, the Hell Mountain Range also produces all kinds of beautiful gemstones. Hearing this, Ning Lang's eyes moved. He glanced at Fangio and hesitated. He shook his head. Even so, I'm not going. It's too dangerous. There's a spiritual stream in the Hell Mountain Range that produces gold pearls and black pearls in the lower stream. These two treasures can only be found in the spiritual stream of the Hell Mountain Range. There are no other places, not even the 8 great empires. Hearing about gold pearls and black pearls, Ning Lang couldn't help but gulp. A light appeared in his eyes. This time, he didn't reject directly. Instead, he lowered his head and played with his fingers. No one knew what he was thinking. Other than that, stop, 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 stop. I can't take it anymore. You know that I like things related to money the most. Why do you keep talking about it? Ning Lang interrupted Fengjiu. He rubbed his face with both hands and asked, just tell me directly. Why do you want me to go? I'm not strong and I can't do anything even if I go. At most, I'll go wherever there are treasures. What's more, I won't give you what I find. Why do you want me to go? This won't benefit you, right? As he spoke, he shook his head. No, it's not good for either side. Because our strength isn't strong, we might be dragged away by beasts before we can enter. Or we might encounter robbers inside and have our treasures stolen. Or we might even die without even touching the treasures. The more I think about it, the more it's not worth it. Fangio curled his lips into a smile. How can there be money without risk? If you want to get something, you have to pay a price. Let me ask you, are you going or not? I have to think about it and discuss it with my father. How can I go just like that? As he spoke, he scratched his head and said, how about this? You can stay at my house tonight, and I'll give you an answer tomorrow. All right. She nodded her head. In her heart she had already made up her mind. If he agreed to go, then that would be the best. But if he did not agree, she would directly tie him up and take him away. In any case, she would just throw him in there to gain experience for a year. Regardless of whether his cultivation would advance or not, after a year, she would just return him to the 2-star academy. Duanyi, who was at the side, didn't say anything. He just sat there eating snacks and drinking tea while listening to the two of them talk. Chapter 951. Thus, he personally brought them to the backyard to settle them down and let them rest for a while. He then turned and left. When he returned to the front, he rubbed his head and thought about the young man in red. Fengjiu? Why do I feel like I've seen him somewhere before? He muttered as he turned and walked back. After instructing people to prepare for the banquet, he returned to the main courtyard. Father. He peeked his head out of the courtyard and walked in, asking, is my father in the courtyard? The mayor and madam have gone out and haven't returned yet. The guard in the courtyard replied, oh, I see. He thought for a moment, then said, when they're back, get someone to inform me. After giving his instructions, he returned to his room. When he returned to his room, he took out the golden abacus and continued to calculate the unfinished accounts. His chubby fingers were unbelievably nimble when it came to calculating the abacus. However, after about an hour, he suddenly paused. I remember now. Young master? What's wrong? Young master, what's wrong? When the servant outside heard the shriek from inside, he couldn't help but ask worriedly. However, he didn't dare to open the door without his instructions. It's nothing. As Ning Lang spoke, he ignored the servant outside and flipped through the study table behind him. Not long after, he found a portrait. When his gaze landed on the portrait, his small eyes slowly widened. So it's him. I was thinking that he looked familiar. So I've seen him before. It's him. The person in the portrait was dressed in red and had a handsome face. The wanton expression between his brows and the expression in his eyes were extremely realistic. It was undoubtedly Fengjiu. The ghost doctor. It's actually the ghost doctor. A bottle of his medicine can be sold for a sky-high price. And that beauty pill is even more priceless. It's said that the one and only pill was bought by a member of the royal family of a first-tier country during the first auction. But why did this guy come to my house? And he wants to bring me to the Hell Mountain Range? There are so many people out there. But why me? He held the portrait and muttered to himself. His small eyes darted around. He had the mind of a businessman. Thus, in the face of benefits and benefits, what he thought the most was why. Why would someone like the ghost doctor come to his house? Why didn't he look for anyone else? Why did he have to go to the Hell Mountain Range? He sat quietly in the room for an hour until the attendant outside reported that his parents had returned. Thus, he put the portrait into his bosom before opening the door and walking out. Because he was a businessman, he had the latest news from all sides, especially the most profitable news. It was a pity that he couldn't get the ghost doctor's medicine, because it had always been auctioned off in the black market. Even if others wanted to, they didn't have the chance. Ever since the portrait of the ghost doctor had spread among the various major powers and the royal family, many people had been secretly paying attention to it. Who would have thought that it would actually run to his home in Ning City? Thinking of this, his heart was faintly excited. If his parents knew about this, they would definitely be very shocked. And let's tell them this news first before making a decision. As for the front hall, the city lord was slightly surprised when he heard the butler say that there was a guest in the house. Oh, was he here to look for Langer? This child only knew how to earn money all day long. He didn't even go back to the academy, but he actually had friends who came to look for him? Interesting. Chapter 952. The beautiful woman sitting next to the city lord smiled and said, "Pass down the order. We have to entertain the young master's 2 friends tonight. Tell the kitchen to hurry up and prepare." "Madam, the young master has already given the order. The kitchen is already preparing," the housekeeper said with a smile. "That's good." The beautiful woman nodded and looked at the city lord beside her. "Go and call Langer over." The city lord motioned. "Yes." The housekeeper replied. Just as he was about to turn and leave, he saw his young master coming over from not far away. He hurriedly turned back and said, "Master, madam, the young master is here." Father, mother. Seeing their chubby son running over, the city lord and madam looked at each other and smiled. Looking at the chubby figure running over, their faces were full of doting love. Slow down, slow down. You're already so big, and you still need to run. If the servants see you, they'll laugh at you," the city lord's wife said with a smile, shaking her head helplessly. "Mother." He came to his mother's side and reached out to hold her hand. "Father, mother, let me tell you, just now." I know. When we came in, the housekeeper told us that you have 2 friends coming to see you, right? Father and mother both know." The city lord's wife smiled and interrupted him. She patted his chubby hand and said, "Son, it's not easy to have friends come to find you. Don't just focus on earning money. Play with your 2 friends and take them around the city. You have to be a good host and build a good relationship with your friends." The city lord nodded. That's right. Listen to father and mother and go out more often. Don't stay in the city all day. If you really don't want to go out more, go back to the academy. You should have many friends there, right? You haven't gone back for so long. They must miss you very much. Seeing that his parents wanted to encourage him to return to the academy whenever they had the chance, he couldn't help but dig his ears and say, "Father, mother, don't keep bringing this up. My ears are getting calluses from hearing it so much." He had originally planned to tell them about Fengjiu's identity, but seeing the 2 of them like this, he swallowed back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Rolling his eyes, he smiled with a pair of sparkling eyes and said, "Father, mother, I remember that there are still some things that I haven't dealt with yet. I have to go back first. That's right. Don't be unable to find me tonight. When the sun sets, I have to entertain guests." I know, I know. Aren't they your two friends? Father and mother also want to meet them. City Lord Ning said with a smile. Looking at his sneaky son's eyes, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although it's not very good to say that my son is sneaky, but looking at him like this, no one knows him better than his father. I guess he's planning something again. You'll see them tonight. They're resting now. I'll leave first. I have to deal with some matters. As Ning Lang said this, he waved his hand and didn't give them a chance to speak. He turned around and trotted out. Returning to his courtyard, he went straight to his study. After busying himself for about the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, he called out 4 shadow guards and handed them something. Here are 8 invitations. Take them to the several families and forces in the city. Tell them that one invitation is worth 100,000 gold coins. Yes. The 4 shadow guards respectfully responded and quickly left. Chapter 953. Therefore, in the large Ning city, on this day, a few of the more prominent forces in the city received the invitation sent by Ning City's young city lord, Ning Lang. To be precise, it wasn't a gift, but a sale. A single invitation, an invitation to enter the city lord's manor to attend a banquet, was worth 100,000 gold. When they heard this unbelievably high price, even the leaders of those forces were shocked, thinking that he had gone mad from thinking about money. Why would they spend 100,000 gold to attend his family's banquet for no reason? However, when everyone heard the secret guard's words and took a look at the invitation, their expressions changed slightly, their eyes filled with disbelief. The ghost doctor? It's actually the ghost doctor? The ghost doctor is in the city lord's manor now? Everyone was stunned, but more were pleasantly surprised. Especially before they could make a decision, their wives had rushed over after hearing the news, asking their husbands to pay 100,000 gold to attend the banquet tonight, because they wanted to buy the beauty-nourishing pill from the ghost doctor. Heaven knows that the beauty-nourishing pill caused a sensation when it came out. To women who didn't want to be beautiful enough to retain their man's gaze and love. Especially in those families with many wives and concubines, the charm of a single beauty-nourishing pill was irresistible, because it didn't just make them younger and prettier, it was a pill that could change their life. This ghost doctor is really in the city lord's manor? A family head asked in disbelief. People from all the countries were looking for the ghost doctor's whereabouts, but he had come to their place? Was this real? Why would he stay in the city lord's manor? Could it be that the ghost doctor and the city lord were old acquaintances? I'm only following orders, I don't know anything else. However, my master said that he would never swindle people when doing business. This 100,000 gold is only the prerequisite for everyone to attend the banquet tonight. He's providing everyone with a chance to get close to each other. As for whether the ghost doctor will accept everyone's request, that has nothing to do with my master. Hearing this, the family head hesitated, but still ordered someone to take the secret guard away, and gave him 100,000 gold in exchange for the invitation. After the secret guard left, the family head called for someone to go out and inquire about the news. Until they heard that a few other powerful families had also bought the invitation to the banquet, their expressions changed slightly, and there was a trace of excitement in their hearts. For everyone to spend 100,000 gold coins to buy it, this ghost doctor should be real. When they thought of the ghost doctor's miraculous medical skills, as well as those medicines and pills, their hearts started to beat wildly. The ghost doctor's medicines and pills were all priceless. If they could get 1 or 2 bottles, thinking of this, the patriarch swallowed his saliva and hurriedly ordered people to make preparations. They would head to the city lord's mansion in the evening. As for Fangjiu, who was cultivating in the city lord's mansion, she would never have thought that the little fat boy would be so greedy. He dared to sell her information on their first meeting and even attracted people from various forces in the city. If she knew about the trouble he had caused, she would definitely give him a good beating so that he would remember. As time passed, the sun set in the west. Before the sky was completely dark, the few sovereigns holding the invitation cards came to the city lord's mansion one after another. After showing the cards, a few servants waiting inside personally welcomed them in. Chapter 954. There was still some time before the banquet, so she decided to take a stroll around the city lord's manor. Flicking her red robes, she strode out. Everywhere she went, she saw luxurious houses and groups of servants. Everywhere she went, she could feel the hidden aura of a large family. Every distance she walked out of the courtyard, she could feel the aura hidden in the shadows. After walking around, she happened to come to the side of a rock garden. She sat down on a rock beside the pond and saw that the servants in the manor seemed to be busy, walking back and forth. "Master, the Ning family's young master said that the ghost doctor is here. It should be true, right? When I came in, I asked the servants in the manor, but none of them knew." A woman's voice came from behind the rock garden. Her words made Fengjiu raise his eyebrows. How can it be false? An invitation to the banquet costs 100,000 gold. If it's not true, would he dare to accept this money? The man's voice was low and steady. "I don't really want to ask for pills and medicine. I just want to ask the ghost doctor to treat our Hong-er's illness. This is a rare opportunity, so I have to give it a try no matter what." "That's right. This ghost doctor comes and goes like a ghost. It's rare for us to know that he's come to Ning City. No matter what, we have to invite him to our house." The two chatted as they walked, their voices gradually fading away. Standing by the pond, Fengjiu blinked his eyes in shock. An invitation cost 100,000 gold? Were they going to rob money? Ning Lang, this little fatty. She shook her head and sighed softly. Sure enough, these brats were not easy to manipulate. Each of them had more tricks up their sleeves than she did. While she was thinking of how to take him away, he already knew that she was the ghost doctor. This banquet was said to be a welcoming banquet, so he could take the opportunity to make a fortune. This little fatty, it was no wonder he was called a miser. Thinking of that white and fat little fatty, full of wealth, calling out a name that was as elegant as beautiful jade, she couldn't help but smile. Ning Lang was a homonym for Lin Lang, which meant precious and beautiful jade treasures. It could be seen that the city lord couple had high expectations and love for their son, and the little fatty didn't seem to disappoint them. He wasn't as graceful as other youths, but he was also fair and plump, full of wealth and wealth. Perhaps, for parents, seeing their children grow up safely and being fair and tender was enough to satisfy them. Forget it. After being tricked once, I'll find another chance to get back at you. She chuckled and turned around to walk back. She returned to the courtyard and sat for a while. Not long after, Duanyi opened the door from the other room and walked out. "I think I heard you go out." He rubbed his shoulders and yawned as he looked at Fengjiu, who was sitting in the courtyard. After a good night's sleep, he felt comfortable all over. It was one thing for him to be able to stay in a homestay, but if he didn't, he would have to make do with the night in the mountains and forests. He didn't have much rest. "Yes, I went out for a walk." She tapped her fingers on the table, her gaze deep in thought. No one knew what she was thinking. Seeing this, Duanyi walked over and sat down beside Fengjiu. "If this little fatty doesn't come with us, what do you plan to do?" Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at him and asked with a smile, "Then what do you think I should do?" Chapter 955. Fengjiu smiled and didn't say anything. If it weren't for her identity as a teacher, she wouldn't have specially brought them along. As for going to the Hell Mountain Range, she didn't plan to go. But on the way, she felt that it was better to go to the Hell Mountain Range than to bring them back to the academy to teach. "You're awake? I was just wondering if you were still asleep." Ning Lang, the chubby boy, walked in. A 16-year-old youth who wasn't tall, his appearance was quite likable. However, this likable little fatty was someone who was good at scheming. He looked at the two of them, and finally his gaze fell on Fengjiu. He smiled with his small eyes and asked, "Fengjiu, are you comfortable living here? Are you not used to it? Do you need me to help you change to another courtyard?" "No need. This place is quite good." She stood up and flicked her robe. "Then let's go to the front. The banquet in front is already prepared, and my parents are already there," he said with a smile, gesturing for the two to follow him. Let's go. I'm already hungry," Duanyi said and walked out first. Fengjiu, who was behind him, glanced at Ning Lang with a smile and followed him out to the front courtyard. Front courtyard. Why haven't we seen anyone yet? Yeah, we haven't seen anyone yet. Is this real or fake? That's right. Didn't they say that he's here? The city lord's wife, who was sitting on the main seat, heard the people sitting on both sides whispering, as if they hadn't seen anyone yet, and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Everyone, are you saying that my son hasn't arrived yet? He went to invite his two friends, and should be back soon, the city lord said with a smile, but he was puzzled. He heard his son say that tonight's banquet was for his two friends, but why did he invite the rulers of all the major forces in Ning City? Moreover, none of them were absent, and some even brought their wives along. It was really strange. When the people sitting on both sides heard this, they couldn't help but smile. One of them asked, "City Lord, I heard that the ghost doctor came to your residence. Is it true?" Hearing this, the city lord was stunned. The ghost doctor? Where did this news come from? Why didn't I know? He really didn't know. When did the ghost doctor come from their city lord's residence? The ghost doctor's reputation had spread recently, and everyone wanted to see her, but they didn't know where to find her. How could she appear in their city lord's residence? Moreover, if she's really in his home, he wouldn't know? City lord, you don't know? Don't joke around. Tonight, it was your son who invited us. Oh no. That person shook his head and said with a smile. Although it was an invitation, it wasn't. They had spent 100,000 gold to buy this invitation. The city lord was confused. He glanced at his wife beside him and saw her shaking her head, indicating that she didn't know. He couldn't help but look at the people sitting around him. He asked hesitantly, "What's going on?" Teet teet, teet teet. Chapter 956. Hearing this, the city lord furrowed his brows in astonishment, and his expression darkened. If this was true, then one of the two youths who came today must be the ghost doctor. Other than that, there were no other guests in the city lord's manor. However, if one of them really was the ghost doctor, then Lang had leaked the news and invited them to the banquet at the price of 100,000 gold each. This method was inappropriate. Just as he was about to ask the madam to find out what was going on, he saw the housekeeper walking towards them with a smile on his face. "Master, madam, the young master and his two friends are here." Hearing this, everyone quickly turned to look. They saw that among the three youths, the one leading the way was the city lord's son, Ning Lang. His chubby figure could be recognized at a glance. As for the two youths behind him, one was dressed in luxurious purple robes and had an imposing air of nobility, while the other was dressed in red robes and had a wanton and ostentatious air. Their gazes instinctively fell on the red-robed youth. When they saw that handsome yet somewhat devilish face, their eyes lit up and they all stood up. The ghost doctor. It really is the ghost doctor. Not bad, not bad. I also have a portrait of the ghost doctor. The real person is even more handsome and dazzling than the portrait. I didn't expect this. The ghost doctor is actually a youth. I always thought that he would be an old man, or a middle-aged man. I didn't expect him to be so young. Ghost doctor. I am. In a moment, one by one, they rushed forward and surrounded Fengjiu. Their words were filled with excitement, and their hearts were filled with excitement. Surrounding Fengjiu, some people asked for medicine, some asked for pills, and some asked for treatment. It could be said that this person said one sentence after another, not giving Fengjiu a chance to speak or time to react. Duanyi, who had been pushed to the side, frowned and glanced at the smiling Ning Lang, asking, "Fatty, what ghost doctor? Is this your doing?" Duanyi, don't you know? He's the ghost doctor. Recently, it's been spread all over the big countries that one of his medicines can help people advance, and one pill can restore a person's youthful appearance. His medical skills are superb, and it's said that he's a ghost doctor who can snatch people from the king of hell. Thus, he's called the ghost doctor. Him? That's impossible, right? Duanyi was slightly startled as he stared at Fengjiu. Although he was surrounded by a crowd, his expression did not change. There was even a faint smile on his handsome face. However, the gaze that he inadvertently glanced at him made him feel strange. Therefore, he elbowed Ning Lang, who was beside him. "Fatty, did you offend him? Why did I see him looking at you with such a strange gaze? I'm telling you." After saying that, he didn't say anything else. The scene of Fangio killing people flashed before his eyes, and he felt a little apprehensive. Looking at him, who usually seemed harmless, he felt that compared to him, he was more dangerous and unfathomable. This fatty better not offend him. Otherwise, he was sure that even if he didn't die, he would make him lose a few pounds of fat. "I'll just—" Ning Lang was about to speak when he was stopped. "Lang, come over here." The city lord glared at his chubby son with a dark face, anger surging in his heart. Chapter 957. Ning Lang walked over and asked excitedly, "Father, are you surprised?" "Surprised? Humph. If you're surprised, there's no surprise." City Lord Ning's face darkened as he snorted heavily and asked angrily, "The ghost doctor came to our house. Since you recognized her, why didn't you tell me? You even used 100,000 gold per invitation to invite people from various families. You're such a bastard." "What does it matter? I only pulled the strings so that they could see the ghost doctor. Besides, look, they've all surrounded him. If he were to take out the medicine to sell, it would be a considerable sum of money. I've even helped him." Hearing this, City Lord Ning shook his head helplessly. "Son, not everyone thinks the same way as you. Do you think that just because his medicine can be sold at a sky-high price, he has to quickly refine more medicine to sell? No, to him, he doesn't have to sell the medicine. In this world, not everything can be bought with money." He lectured in a serious tone and gestured for him to look at the surrounded red-clothed youth. "People who want to buy his medicine will buy it no matter what, whether it's at a sky-high price or through bartering. As long as they feel that it's worth it, they will spend the money. His medicine won't be sold, as long as it's not enough. Your actions today, you didn't ask for his opinion, did you? But I also brought him a chance to earn money. Isn't he happy that he can earn money? Do you think that refining medicine is so easy? Just by thinking about it? Nothing is easy. Refining medicine and pills are even more so. Otherwise, this world wouldn't value alchemists and medicine so much." Ning Lang moved his mouth but didn't say anything. He was originally very smart. When his father said this, he understood. Therefore, he seemed to know that his actions today were too much. "They came all the way here to see you. They must value you as a friend. Tell me, what kind of bastard things have you done? Now that it's like this, how do you think we should end this?" He scratched his head and lowered it, not knowing what to do. On the other side, Fangzhou smiled distantly and said, "Everyone, I'm sorry." She walked out from the crowd and looked at Ning Lang. "Didn't you say you would treat us to a big meal tonight?" "Well, how about this? I'll treat you guys to a meal," he suggested, intending to apologize to him after they went out. "No need, just eat here. However, it's time to serve the dishes. Duanyi just said that he was hungry," she said with a smile, looked at City Lord Ning and his wife, and cupped her hands in greeting. City Lord's wife. "Hee, Ghost Doctor need not be so courteous. Please take a seat," the City Lord said, hurriedly inviting him to take a seat. "My name is Fangzhou. City Lord can just call me Fangzhou." She and Duanyi sat down together. Seeing this, the others also sat down. "Steward, tell them to serve the dishes. Go to the wine cellar and take out my precious jar of spirit wine," the City Lord ordered.
"Yes."
The butler hurriedly turned around and left. "Everyone, this is all my son's fault. I will punish myself with 3 cups of wine and apologize to everyone." Chapter 958. Fangzhou glanced at Ning Lang and chuckled. "It's all right, this isn't much." Anyway, she planned to wait until she threw him into the Hell Mountain range to temper his temper. When they reached that place, she wouldn't have to worry about not having a chance to teach him a lesson. When everyone saw this, they were secretly surprised. It seemed that this young Master Ning was secretly making 100,000 gold taels without anyone's knowledge. When they saw that the situation wasn't quite right, they didn't ask for any more pills or medicine. After the servants served the food and wine, The city lord looked at Feng Jiu and Duan Yi and said with a smile, "The two of you aren't from here, so we'll serve you with local ingredients today." He pointed at a plate in front of him with 2 king crabs on it. These are the king crabs unique to the Snow Sea. You can't eat them anywhere else. Unlike other places, the king crabs in the Snow Sea can be caught all year round. The crab roe is plump all year round. It can be said to be the best delicacy here. Please have a taste. Feng Jiu saw these king crabs earlier. These things weren't common in the Phoenix dynasty. Even if they were, they wouldn't be this big. For someone like her who loved good food, she only wanted to eat after seeing such delicious king crabs. "Then we won't stand on ceremony." As she spoke, she didn't look at anyone else. She picked up a small pair of scissors and cut off the crab's leg first, then opened the crab's lid. When the others saw him eating the crab skillfully, they couldn't help but be secretly surprised. These king crabs were only available here. Could it be that he had eaten them elsewhere? Looking at his technique, he wasn't unfamiliar at all. On the other hand, the baby-faced youth in purple stared at the king crab in front of him but didn't know where to start. In the end, he directly asked a servant girl behind him to serve him the meal. The city lord ordered the steward to bring the spirit wine and let him fill everyone's cups. They chatted while eating. Everyone was tactful and knew that they shouldn't talk about other things during the meal. Therefore, they only talked about some romantic things. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the things on the table were cleaned up and the spirit wine was poured for them again. Even though it was already late, no one wanted to leave. Instead, they were hesitating about what to say. Compared to the others, one of the husband and wife looked at each other and then stood up, cupping their hands and greeting towards Feng Jiu. "Ghost Doctor, I am the head of the He family in the city, and this is my wife. Tonight, because we know that the Ghost Doctor's medical skills are superb, and you have the ability to bring people back to life, we wish to ask the Ghost Doctor to save my son. As long as the Ghost Doctor is willing to save him, this he will remember the Ghost Doctor's great kindness. If there is anything this He family needs this He family's help in the future, this He family will not hesitate to die 10,000 times. Young Master Feng, please save my son." That madam, he wiped away her tears, her face full of grief. "We know that young Master Feng won't easily save people, but please understand the feelings of a mother. We really have no other way." The others looked at Feng Jiu, their thoughts stirring. They knew about the He family's son. He was a rather outstanding youth, but it was said that he had some kind of bone-eroding wind poison. Both his legs were useless. They invited many doctors, even pharmacists and alchemists, but they all said that there was no way to save him. If he wanted to live, they could only chop off his 2 legs. As a result, they were all thinking in their hearts, which of their daughters had reached the right age, or which of the women their families had raised to serve others with their looks were suitable. Hearing Duan Ye's unexpected words, Feng Jiu glared at him. "Don't talk nonsense. This baby face, what did he say that she liked beauties the most? She was a woman. Why would she like a woman? What's more, how could he tell that she liked women?" Chapter 960. Hearing this, the corner of her mouth twitched. That is pure admiration. When a man looks at a woman, it is not pure admiration, it is all-colored admiration. Duan Yi had an "I knew it" expression. He did not believe Feng Jiu's words at all. Feng Jiu could not be bothered to say more to him. She looked towards the He couple and said, "How about this? I will go to your residence tomorrow morning to take a look. The situation will depend on the illness." Originally, she planned to wait for Ning Lang's answer tomorrow. Regardless of whether he agreed or not, she was going to take him away. However, meeting this person who was seeking medical treatment, just like what Madam he said, all parents in the world have the heart. Seeing their own son suffering, the pain of being unable to save him at any time, was even more unacceptable than taking their own lives. Although she was a cold-hearted person, she was also a sentimental person. She protected the people she valued and did not wish for the people she cherished to be hurt. Towards those who wanted to kill her and take her life, she could also be cold and merciless. But towards this kind of selfless and unconditional relationship between parents and children, she could not ignore it. It was one thing if she did not meet it, but now that she met it and they came begging, she would help if she could. Anyway, this kind of thing to her was just a matter of using her hands, but to others, it was a chance to live. Hearing this, the he couple was extremely emotional and hurriedly thanked. "Thank you, Ghost Doctor. Thank you, Ghost Doctor. We will immediately go back and tell this news to our son. Tomorrow we will definitely bring Ghost Doctor to our house." Both of them were extremely emotional. After thanking her profusely, they went back home, intending to tell this news to their son. The others watched the two of them leave. Someone opened his mouth and said, "Ghost Doctor, we—" Before he could finish, he was interrupted. "Everyone, please go back. No matter if it is medicine or elixirs, I have not refined them recently and have nothing to sell to you. Furthermore, my elixirs and medicines will only be auctioned and will not be sold privately." Fengjiu stood up, patted her robes, and said to the city lord and his wife, "It is already late. I will go back and rest first." As she said that, she cupped her hands and bowed, then turned around and left. Duanyi also stood up when he saw this. He walked to Ning Lang's side and put his hand on his shoulder. "Little fatty, let's go. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's have a good chat tonight." As he spoke, he directly pulled her away without caring about the consequences. Seeing this, the city lord and his wife exchanged a glance. Then, the city lord said to the others, "Everyone, I, Ning, will return the 100,000 gold coins my son received from all of you." He truly lacked consideration and was too disrespectful. Chapter 961. As a result, everyone took their leave one after another. The city lord personally sent them out, and only after the guests had all left did he return inside and say to his wife, "I never thought that Lang would do such a thing after recognizing the ghost doctor's identity. Say, do you think this matter will really be let go? Lang should not have known the ghost doctor at first. I think the ghost doctor should be young Master Duan's friend. That's why they came here together." As the city lord's wife said that, she thought for a moment and said, "Let them settle this matter themselves. We cannot interfere too much in their matters." That's true. The city lord nodded and returned to the courtyard with his wife without saying anything else. On the other side, Duanyi hugged Ning Lang and asked, "Little fatty, you really cheated those people of 100,000 gold each? Also, how did you recognize Fengjiu as the ghost doctor? You didn't even tell me that you recognized him? You're not a good friend." Ning Lang scratched his head and said embarrassedly, You also know that I like money. Once there's an opportunity to earn money, I won't let it go." So, he looked at the tightly shut door and asked hesitantly, "Do you think it's better if I go in and apologize?" "Apologize? Haha." Duanyi laughed softly and patted him on the shoulder. Selling Fengjiu isn't something that can be settled with just an apology. Hurry up and go back to sleep. Isn't he still waiting for your answer? Think about it and tell him. I think it will be more useful than your apology." Hearing this, Ning Lang frowned and nodded. "I understand. I will go back and think about it." As he said that, he wanted to turn around and leave. However, he still walked to the tightly shut door. "Fengjiu, I'm sorry. I went overboard tonight. I'm sorry. You must forgive me." As he said that, he did not hear any movement inside. Thus, he turned around and left. He returned to his courtyard and thought about whether he should go to the Hell Mountain range. Initially, he had only promised to give the answer the next day to stall for time. He had wanted to keep the other party around so that he could earn some money. However, he had never expected things to turn out like this. He really shouldn't have done that. At that time, he had only thought of getting someone to send out those posts for 100,000 gold coins. He hadn't thought of the final outcome. Duanyi watched Ning Lang leave with his head lowered. After a long while, he knocked on Fengjiu's door and shouted, "Fengjiu, you still haven't told me how you became the ghost doctor." However, there was still no sound from inside. Seeing this, he pushed the door but found that it was locked. He had no choice but to give up. "I'm going to the He family tomorrow. Don't disturb me. Go back and rest." Fengjiu's voice came from inside. He still did not open the door. When you go to the He family tomorrow, remember to call me along. I'll go take a look too, he instructed before turning around and returning to his room. That night, for some people, they would not be able to sleep. However, for Fengjiu and Duanyi, once they rested, they fell into a deep sleep under the influence of alcohol. The next morning, the warm sunlight shone on the ground. The gentle light shone through the leaves and cast a shadow on the ground. A cool breeze blew, and the leaves swayed from the branches and fell to the ground in the courtyard. Chapter 962. At the same time, the He family head who had arrived early did not dare disturb him. He could only wait outside for him to wake up. After another hour, Fengjiu finally woke up. He remembered that he had to go to the He family to treat the He family's young master, so he got up to wash up. Not long after, he went out of the courtyard and called for Duanyi to bring some breakfast over. He ate while waiting for Duanyi. After another hour, the two of them finished eating and went to the front yard. They saw the He family head quickly greet them. "Ghost doctor." "Sorry, I woke up late," she said apologetically. No, I came early," the He family head quickly said. Looking at the red-clothed youth in front of him, he respectfully said, "Ghost doctor, the carriage is ready. Ghost doctor and Duke Duan, please get on the carriage." Fengjiu nodded and walked out with him. The two of them got on a luxurious carriage. The He family head personally rode in front to lead the way. Some people who didn't know saw this scene and were surprised. They secretly asked around. About an hour later, they arrived at the He manor. Madam He had already brought people to wait outside. When she saw them arrive, she quickly went to greet them. After bowing, she invited them in. "Ghost doctor, this is my Hong-er's courtyard. Because his legs are inconvenient and he can't get out of bed, he couldn't come out to greet you. I hope the ghost doctor won't take offense," the He family head said. "I won't." Fengjiu shook his head and walked in. Once inside, the smell of medicine entered her nose. The entire air was filled with an aura of death. She didn't need to look to know that this person was sick to the point of death. "Open the windows and doors for ventilation," she indicated. Hearing this, Madam He quickly had people open the windows and doors. She walked with Fengjiu to the side of the bed. "Hong-er, this is the ghost doctor young Master Feng. Quickly greet young Master Feng." "Greetings to young Master Feng. I can't get out of bed to greet you. I hope young Master Feng won't take offense." Fengjiu's gaze fell on the man lying on the bed. The man was around 25 years old. His face was thin and pale. When he spoke, his voice was weak. In contrast to his pale face, his lips were red like fire. Seeing this, she nodded her head. "Let me see your legs." Hearing this, the He family head walked forward and lifted the blanket on his son. The person under the blanket was only wearing a pair of short underwear. His two legs were shockingly swollen, and his skin was dark with a tinge of red. Seeing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly. She took a step forward and reached out to feel the temperature of his legs. Sure enough, it was as hot as fire. She frowned and looked at his legs. After a moment of thought, she said, "Lift up his shirt." Okay. The He family head hurriedly responded. He lifted his son's shirt and looked at Fengjiu. He didn't dare disturb him. Even though he was anxious, he could only watch silently. Fengjiu glanced at his abdomen and pressed down again. When she saw the man's pained expression, she withdrew her hand and said, "The fire poison is already attacking upwards." At this time, the fire poison in his internal organs has already spread. If he is not treated within 3 days, he will undoubtedly die. Madam He heard this and her legs went soft as she cried and begged. "I beg the ghost doctor to save my son. I beg the ghost doctor. I only have this one son." Chapter 963. Hearing this, family head He's heart was filled with joy as he hurriedly replied, Good. What medicine does the ghost doctor need? I'll immediately send someone to bring it over." He then walked out with him. Duanyi, who was following behind, glanced at the person on the bed and thought to himself, how can he be cured when he's this sick? He really has some skills. Hong did you hear that? The ghost doctor said that nothing will happen. He said that nothing will happen. Madam, he wiped her tears and stayed in the room to accompany her son. At the same time, she shed tears of joy because of Fengjiu's words. He Hong revealed a weak smile. Mother, don't cry. He knew his own situation and knew that he wouldn't be able to live. As for this ghost doctor that his parents had invited, he had never heard of him before. He only believed 30% of his words, especially when he was still so young. How could he completely believe the words of a teenager? Even so, he knew that his parents were worried and could only cooperate. He was neither sad nor happy because he had already prepared for the worst, which was death. Even if the end result was death, he didn't care. However, his heart was still worried about his parents and he couldn't let go of them. He was the only son they had left. Thinking of this, the tears in the corners of his eyes couldn't help but flow out. They dripped onto the pillow and disappeared without a trace. Fengjiu first prescribed a medicine for him and had them boil it. He also had him buy the medicine according to the prescription. Family head, he didn't dare delay and quickly ordered his trusted aide to boil the medicine. He picked the medicine that the manor had and personally went out to buy the medicine that they didn't have. Duan Yi had been following by Fengjiu's side the entire time. Seeing that she had been busy for half a day, he sat down at the table and asked, "Are you sure you can cure him?" "I don't think it's easy to cure him. I've treated the bone-eroding wind poison before, so it can be cured. However, it took too long for him to fully recover, so it's impossible for him to fully recover in a short period of time. However, after using the medicine, his life can be saved. As for the fire poison in his body and the damage to his body, he can slowly recuperate." She poured a cup of tea and drank it as she explained to him. Hearing this, Duanyi supported his baby face with one hand and looked at him in confusion. "You really came from a 7th-ranked country?" Fengjiu softly laughed. "What? You don't believe me?" He nodded his head. "How could a small 7th-ranked country have someone like you?" He only softly laughed and didn't say anything else. Thus, he didn't ask anymore. After an hour, Patriarch he walked in quickly with sweat all over his forehead. Ghost doctor, I found all the herbs. Find me a quiet courtyard. I will concoct some medicine for you." She stood up and said, even Duanyi was outside. With, this is a pill. 1 pill a day is enough. You'll be fine after you finish this pill. Telling him, this. Just finish it. She looked at the sky and asked, "After a few hours, your son should have a reaction after drinking the medicine, right?" Chapter 964. This is normal. He has fire poison in his body, so this is the only way to expel it. All right, it's getting late. I have to go. As she spoke, she glanced at Duanyi at the side. Duanyi stood up and walked to her side. Hearing that she was about to leave, Patriarch he hurriedly said, "Ghost doctor, please wait a moment." As he spoke, he gave an order in a low voice. Not long after, the housekeeper hurriedly brought something over. "Ghost doctor, this is a treasure that I obtained by chance. It's just a token of my respect. I ask the ghost doctor to accept it." Fengjiu originally wanted to say no, but when her gaze fell on the red cloth on the tray, her brows slightly moved, asking, "What is this?" "This is the red sky silk, an ancient treasure that my ancestors obtained by chance. It has always been kept in my family." Patriarch he said, looking at Fengjiu, saying, "The ghost doctor saved my son, and I have no way to repay you. Knowing that the ghost doctor likes red clothes, I thought of this treasure in my house. Today, I present it to the ghost doctor. I hope the ghost doctor will accept it." Fengjiu's eyes moved, reaching out her hand to take it. Of course she knew about this red sky silk. It was a legendary treasure in the modern era. She never thought that there would be such a thing in the air. Mixed in the silk, it was 7 feet long and could not be cut by swords. It could be used to defend, attack, control, bind enemies, be used as a belt, or be used as a hand to tie the silk. It could be said that this treasure was really not bad. Since it is so, I will accept it. She revealed a smile as she spoke. Good, good. Patriarch, he happily nodded, personally sending them out. Even if the red sky silk was an ancient treasure, it was rarely revealed in front of people in their house. The people in their house could not use it, nor did they dare to use it. If one did not have a certain level of strength and influence, who would dare to reveal such a treasure in front of people? Sitting in the carriage, seeing him playing with the red silk called the red sky silk, Duanyi could not help but curl her lips. This red silk is clearly a woman's plaything. I really don't know what good treasure it is. This red silk is indeed not suitable for everyone. Women are not picky, but not many men like this kind of thing. As she spoke, she raised her smiling eyes. However, I happen to like this kind of thing. 2 prescriptions and 1 bottle of medicine are enough to cure that person? His 2 legs are so swollen that it's scary. He frowned as he spoke. He hadn't seen it with his own eyes, so he still didn't quite believe it. However, the He couple treated Fengjiu like a god. They believed whatever he said. It was really strange. Returning to the city lord's mansion, they saw the fatty sitting at the door waiting for the 2 of them. Seeing him, the 2 of them looked at each other. Duanyi went up and asked, Little fatty, why are you sitting here? Don't call me little fatty again. Call me Ninglang. He glared at Duanyi with dissatisfaction and emphasized again. He then looked at Fengjiu with a fawning expression and said with a smile, Fengjiu, I have something to tell you, and let's talk inside. She nodded and walked inside. The 2 people behind her hurriedly followed. No one noticed that the position of host and guest seemed to have been reversed. Even Duanyi did not realize that he had unknowingly followed Fengjiu instinctively. Chapter 965. After saying this, he quietly paid attention to Fengjiu's expression. Seeing that his expression did not change and was still calm, he could not help but secretly feel relieved. Thinking about it, it did not matter if he went or not. If he did not go, they could still find someone else. Well, it should be like this. After Duanyi heard his words, she glanced at him. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she just looked at Fengjiu and did not say anything. It doesn't matter. The Hell Mountain range is really dangerous. It is normal for you to not go. Fengjiu nodded, expressing his understanding. Ha ha ha, I knew you would understand me. He patted his chest and grinned. Actually, I am very busy. I really can't leave. I have a lot of business to manage in the city, and there are also a lot of accounts to settle. I can't do it without me. Well, I know. She smiled and said, That's all for now. I'm going to get busy. I'll accompany you to the city in the afternoon, he said with a happy smile. He got up and waved at the 2 of them, then walked out as if there was oil under the soles of his feet. After he left, Duanyi looked at Fengjiu and asked, How are you going to take him away? Then, she felt a little strange. Why does it have to be him? Fengjiu took out a jade card and shook it in front of him. Because of this, seeing the identity jade card of the 2-Star Academy's instructor, Duanyi sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Her baby face was full of surprise. She stared at him. You are also an instructor of the 2-Star Academy? Does this mean that you had a plan for me to come looking for you? What do you mean premeditated? I just had this plan. She shrugged her shoulders and said, I will tell you directly. Because of a certain matter, I have become an instructor of the 2-Star Academy. However, I am not responsible for teaching the other students of the 2-Star Academy. I am only responsible for you 4 troublesome thorns, for a period of 1 year. Rest assured, after a year, I will take you back to the 2-Star Academy, and at that time, whether you stay in the academy or go home, I will not care about it. The people of the 2-Star Academy don't know that you are the ghost doctor, right? If they knew, he did not believe that they would let him come. Moreover, along the way, he felt that he was an unfathomable and dangerous person who said that the ghost doctor only knew about medicine and pills. When he killed people, he did not even blink an eye. Okay? Fengjiu touched her chin and thought for a moment. And they should not know. After a while, she stood up and said, Okay, you pack up. We'll leave when it gets dark. Otherwise, Staying here for too long will cause too much trouble. Seeing him go out, Duanyi called out, "Where are you going?" "I am going to talk to the city's lord." She didn't even turn her head as she waved her hand. She walked to the front and found the steward. Chapter 966. Go and call the young master here. The city lord ordered the steward. Yes, the steward responded and quickly went to find Ning Lang. Not long after, Ning Lang came to the courtyard and saw his parents sitting at the table drinking tea. He came to sit beside them and asked, "Father, mother, why are you looking for me?" You child, you only care about making money all day long. You don't even know how to take care of your body. Here, this is the soup I asked someone to stew for you." The city lord's wife gestured and pushed the stew on the table in front of him. "Mother is so nice." He smiled and squinted his small eyes. He opened it and drank it. When the city lord saw this, he coughed lightly. After he finished drinking, he said, "When you go out, be careful in everything. Listen to young Master Feng. If you encounter something you don't understand, ask. You can't be as willful as you are at home. Think twice before you do anything." Also, listening to his father's nagging, Ning Lang was a little confused. "Father, why are you telling me this? It's not like I'm going on a long trip." Why did these words sound so baffling? Remember what your father said? "Langer, you have to know that money isn't everything. Mother hopes that you can go out and gain experience. When you come back, you can change your greedy nature. Tell me, if your father hands over Ning City to you in the future, with your greedy nature, how can you do it? Not only will you not be able to control the servants, but I'm afraid you won't be able to resist the temptation of money," the city lord's wife said in a deep tone. She looked at him with worry in her eyes. "Mother, just..." He paused and shook his head. "Strange. Why do I feel dizzy?" He looked at his parents and saw that the two people in front of him had turned into four shadows. He shook his head and tried to see clearly, but he still couldn't see. His head sank and he fell down. Seeing this, the couple looked at each other and sighed softly. They put the things they prepared for him on him and ordered, "Ask a few people to carry the young master into the carriage." "Yes," the steward responded and called 2 guards in to carry the young master into the carriage that had been prepared outside. On the other side, Fangjiu and Duanyi also walked out, just in time to see them help the unconscious fatty onto the horse carriage. Seeing this, Duanye's mouth twitched, and he glanced at Fangjiu. He really did what he said and really took her away. At this moment, he strongly suspected that if he didn't agree to go with him, would he also be knocked unconscious and sent to the carriage like this? Thinking about it, it was indeed possible. "Young Master Feng, everything is ready." As City Lord Ning spoke, he glanced at the carriage and sighed. He then bowed to Fangjiu and said, "My good-for-nothing son, I'll have to trouble young Master Feng. Rest assured, City Lord." She nodded slightly and got into the carriage with Duanyi. The difference was that this carriage didn't have a driver. The driver could only be Duanyi, who had changed out of his luxurious clothes. Because they quietly left through the back door, this inconspicuous carriage quietly left the city when the city gates closed. Even the other powers in the city didn't notice that they had left. After all, no one would have thought that he had just gone to the He Manor today and left in the evening. Moreover, he left through the back door. Chapter 967. The carriage traveled for an entire night. It wasn't until the next morning that Ning Lang woke up from the shaking of the carriage. The moment he woke up, he remembered what his parents had said and how he had fainted. Almost instinctively, he jumped up at the thought of this. However, because he was caught off guard, his head hit the carriage wall. Bang! Ouch! It hurts. At the same time a loud crash rang out. It was accompanied by the sound of him sucking in a sharp breath and crying out in pain. He covered his forehead with one hand and stared at the red-robed teenager who had his arms crossed over his chest and was resting with his eyes closed. "Fengjiu, I already said I'm not going. What right do you have to bring me out? You actually went to encourage my parents to drug me?" You're too despicable." He pointed his chubby finger at Fangio and cursed. Fangio slowly opened his eyes. There was coldness in his indifferent eyes. Ning Lang. With just one glance, Ning Lang felt guilty. He couldn't help but put down the hand he was pointing at Fangio. Even his eyes looked evasive. The anger in his belly turned into grievance. He curled his lips and sat down, turning his head away from Fangio. "I already said I'm not going. Why did you still bring me out? You even used such a despicable method," he muttered softly, but he didn't dare to point at Fangio and scold him again. Duanyi, who was driving the carriage outside, heard the commotion in the carriage. His heart moved slightly. The more time he spent with Fangio, the more he felt that he couldn't see through him. Sometimes, he felt that he was quite easygoing, as if he could say anything. Sometimes, he felt that he had a strange personality and wasn't easy to get along with. When his face turned cold, the aura on his body was strange and scary. Even he had obediently become a coachman under his orders, not to mention little fatty Ning. "From the moment you stepped out of the house, you have to listen to me. Don't cause trouble for me. Otherwise, don't blame me for teaching you a lesson," she said coldly, then closed her eyes and didn't look at him anymore. Ning Lang opened his mouth a few times, but he didn't say anything. He looked at Fangio, who was resting with his eyes closed, and thought to himself, "I'd better not fight with him. I'll find an opportunity to slip away. I don't believe that I can't go home." Thinking of this, he calmed down. He sat in the carriage and sized it up. Then, he lifted the curtain and saw that Duanyi was wearing gray clothes. He couldn't help but laugh. "Duanyi, look at what you're wearing. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others for dressing like this?" Duanyi turned around and glanced at him with a straight face, then glanced at Fangio, who was resting with his eyes closed, and said, "Don't mention my identity as a prince." All right, I won't say any more." He patted his shoulder and looked outside, asking, "Where are we going? My whole body is aching from sitting in the carriage. When can we go to the inn to rest?" "I'll call you when we arrive." He drove the carriage faster. Seeing this, Ning Lang didn't say anything else. He shrunk back into the carriage and stared at Fangio, his mind working quickly. About 2 hours later, they entered a town. When they arrived, Duanyi found an inn and stopped the carriage. He jumped off the carriage and said to the two people in the carriage, "We've arrived at the inn." Ning Lang was the first to jump out. His chubby body was quite agile. After getting off the carriage, he stretched and walked into the inn first. "Boss, give me 3 of the best rooms." Chapter 968. When the people in the inn heard the voice, they all turned to look at the person who had just arrived. They saw that the person who walked in first was a chubby young man of 15 or 16 years old. He was dressed in an exquisite brocade robe. The golden light from his body made it hard for them to open their eyes. However, all of their gazes were fixed on him. At first glance, they could tell that he was a rich young master from a wealthy family. As they were thinking, they saw a young man in red walk in from behind. His red robe was dazzling like fire. His handsome face and outstanding temperament made people's eyes light up. They couldn't take their eyes off him. The young man exuded an aura of confidence between his brows. His quiet eyes hid a sharpness. His every movement exuded a wanton and ostentatious aura. His elegance and demonic charm blended together. He seemed both righteous and evil. He was incomparably noble. Beside the young man in red was a young man dressed in a gray robe. He had a baby face and looked like a child of 12 or 13 years old. His baby face was also extremely exquisite and outstanding. Although he was dressed in plain and unremarkable clothes, it couldn't hide the noble aura of the young man. It could be assumed that he was also a person of high status. Seeing these 3 people, the people in the inn had different thoughts. What a strange 3 young men. 3 young men with 3 different attitudes. No matter which one it was, they couldn't be compared to the young masters of ordinary families. They really didn't know where these 3 people came from. Why did they look like they didn't have any servants or strong masters protecting them? When the innkeeper of the inn saw the 3 people come in, he naturally knew that these 3 people weren't ordinary young masters. Therefore, He went up enthusiastically and personally greeted them. Ha ha ha, 3 young masters, please go upstairs. There are rooms upstairs. Ning Lang slightly raised his chin and put his hands behind his back. He walked up the stairs with his feet splayed out. The young man had the attitude of a rich man. As he walked, he told the innkeeper, I want a quiet room with a good view. Add 2 more layers of mattresses on the bed. It doesn't matter if the room is a little expensive. The most important thing is that I live comfortably. Yes, yes. The shopkeeper responded with a smile on his face. After leading them to the guest rooms upstairs, he said, the 3 rooms here are not together. They happen to be independent and close to this side. There is a lake at the back, and the view is excellent. The 3 of you, please take a rest first. The shopkeeper said as he turned around and walked out. He instructed the waiter to lay out 2 more layers of mattresses in their room and serve them tea and snacks before leaving. Fangzhou, Duanyi, we'll rest here tonight. We'll leave tomorrow morning. Don't worry, I'm here. Ning Lang, will take care of everything along the way. He lifted his chin slightly and patted his chest. Fangzhou and Duanyi glanced at him before returning to their rooms to rest. After returning to his room, Fangzhou called out Swallow Cloud from the space and patted its head. Secretly keep an eye on that little fatty. Roar. Tun Yun let out a low howl and went to guard the door. If Ning Lang wanted to leave, it would be able to sense it from here. After the 3 of them ordered food, they asked someone to prepare water for them to take a bath. Then, they returned to their rooms to rest. Duanyi, in particular, had been rushing the carriage since last night and didn't have time to rest. Now that he lay on the bed, he fell asleep in no time. As for Fangzhou, he sat cross-legged and cultivated. Swallow Cloud, who was lying by the door, paid attention to the movements outside. Chapter 969. He softened his footsteps and held his breath as he quietly walked downstairs. When he reached the bottom of the stairs and was about to leave, he was called. Young master, the innkeeper called out with a smile, but his enthusiastic voice gave Ning Lang a fright. Ning Lang patted his chest and calmed his frightened heart. He turned around and glared at the innkeeper in a low voice. Why are you so loud? Why are you calling me? Ha, young master, according to our inn's rules, you have to pay for the room for half a day in advance. You see, the innkeeper came to his side and said. Hearing this, Ning Lang frowned and said, half a day in advance? Are you afraid that we don't have enough money? No, it's because. Before the innkeeper could finish, he was interrupted. All right, you can just ask the person in red to pay for the room for half a day later. I still have something to do and need to go out. Don't waste my time. He waved his hand as he spoke, completely forgetting that he had told Fangzhou and Duanyi that he would pay for the entire journey. Or perhaps he didn't forget at all, but his stingy personality made him happy to earn money. If he wanted to spend money, he would have to think about it. When the shopkeeper heard his words, he was stunned for a moment. He was a little confused as he looked at the chubby young man walking out. He thought that the young man's whole body was shining with golden light. He was rich from head to toe. He was very rich. But who knew that he would not even pay half of the money for the room? He thought, perhaps he didn't have any money on him. He shook off this thought as soon as it appeared. How could such a young man not have any money on him? At this moment, he saw a little beast follow him out. He couldn't help but be stunned. Whose little beast? When did it come in? However, before he could regain his senses, the man and the beast had already disappeared. Shaking his head, he was just about to return to the counter when he saw the red-robed young man come down. Smiling, he walked up to him and said, Young master, that young master just now said that you can pay for the room. Hee, according to the rules of the inn, when you check in, you have to pay for half a day's room first. What do you think? He rubbed his hands together and looked at the red-robed young man with a smile. Hearing this, Fangzhou raised his eyebrows and curled his lips, revealing a devilish smile. He said he wants me to pay for the room?
Yes.
The shopkeeper nodded. Fangzhou's smile deepened. He took out 2 gold coins and tossed them to him. Is that enough? Enough. The The shopkeeper's face was full of smiles as he hurriedly nodded and smiled. Fangzhou smiled and strode out. Relying on his contract with Devouring Cloud, he unhurriedly followed behind. At this moment, Ning Lang didn't know that he was being watched not long after he left the inn. It wasn't Devouring Cloud who was secretly following behind him, nor was it Fangzhou. It was a few independent cultivators. It could be said that they were being watched from the moment they entered the inn. The red-robed young man was handsome and devilish. The baby-faced young man had an air of nobility. As for the chubby little fatty, he had an air of wealth. His glittering gold outfit seemed to be telling others that he was rich, very rich. In addition, he didn't have any bodyguards accompanying him to protect him. He was only 15 or 16 years old. Naturally, he became a target. Chapter 970. Could it be that Fangzhou and Duanyi discovered that I've snuck away? As soon as this thought appeared, his back stiffened. Even his limbs stiffened as he walked. However, after walking for a while, he still couldn't hear their voices. Something didn't seem right. If the two of them saw that he had snuck away, they would definitely stop him. Then, it wasn't them? Who's there? What are you sneaking around for? Bang! He abruptly turned his head and shouted. Who would have thought that when he turned his head, it wasn't someone's voice that responded to him? Instead, it was a heavy blow that came down on his face. The speed of the blow was so fast that he didn't even have time to dodge. He didn't even see who attacked him before he fainted. In the corner, Tun Yun was about to pounce out when Fangzhou stopped her. She carried Tun Yun in her arms and retreated slightly. She watched as the cultivators looked around before they carried Ning Lang away. Seeing this, she curled her lips into a smile and quietly followed behind those people. This little fatty was shrewd, but unfortunately, he was inexperienced and wasn't vigilant enough. He was only in the early stage of foundation establishment. When he encountered a rogue cultivator with a higher cultivation than him, he was completely defenseless. Oh no, it should be said that he didn't even have the chance to fight back. He fainted immediately after being hit by the club. She followed them to a slum. This was a place where the poor, rogue cultivators with missing arms and legs, as well as some extremely vicious people lived. Groups of burly men squatted on the ground in the streets and alleys. Some of them held wine jugs in their hands as they drank, while others sat in a circle and gambled. When she walked in, dressed in red, these people's gazes fell on her. They followed her closely, sizing her up and probing her. The poor commoners only had a few elderly and children left. Young women couldn't stay in a place like this because it was too chaotic. As a result, it could be said that there wasn't a single woman in this place. Of course, there were only a few fat and ferocious-looking female cultivators. Due to the poverty of this area, the place appeared to be somewhat dirty and messy. Garbage could be seen everywhere on the streets and alleys. The dilapidated houses had a faint feeling of looseness, as if they would collapse with a strong push. It looked very dangerous. As she walked with Tun Yun in her arms, her divine sense locked onto the few people who were carrying Ning Lang in front of her. Thus, she was not afraid that she would not be able to find them. Her pace was not fast, and she looked around from time to time. She frowned when she saw two 4- or 5-year-old children playing with bare feet under the wall. This world was just so unfair. Some people lived in luxurious palaces, while others didn't even have a place to stay. Some people ate delicacies, while others starved and became as thin as a match. You too, come here. She stopped and waved her hand with a smile, indicating for the two children to come over. Although the two children were only 4 or 5 years old, they were still on guard. They looked at the cute little pet in Fengzhou's arms with envy and curiosity in their eyes, but they didn't dare to go over. Instead, they leaned against the wall and scratched the wall with their fingers. From time to time, they would sneak glances at Fengzhou. Seeing this, Fengzhou took out a box of desserts from his space and took out a piece. Look, I have desserts. Come over, and I'll give it to you. The three of them glared at him with dark and ferocious faces and shouted, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Actually, they recognized him. He was in the same group as the fat man. They had come in the same carriage. However, they did not expect the young man in red to find this place. How did he find his way here? They did not even know that he was following them. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.